As electric vehicle adoption continues to increase here in the US, it's clear we need more high-speed DC fast chargers. We also need them to work, and that's been a big problem to this date. Outside of the Tesla Supercharger network, many of the chargers on pretty much all of the different charging networks seem to have reliability problems, and when they do break, they often take a long time to be repaired. There's so many different suppliers of electric vehicle charging equipment, it's hard to filter through the different companies to understand which ones are going to be better than the others. But there is a company I've had my eye on for a while. It's called Alpitronic. They don't have a big footprint in the US yet, but they do in Europe, and their equipment seems to be highly reliable, and the people that I know that charge on those chargers seem to like them a lot. The good news is Alpitronic is now going to be supplying charging equipment here in the US, and Mercedes-Benz has selected them to be the supplier of the high-speed DC fast chargers for the new Mercedes-Benz network that's going to have a lot of sites here in the US. Now, Mercedes is going to be opening up their first site with the Alpitronic chargers next month, and that's going to be the first of many. Now, Alpitronic is also having a grand opening of their North American headquarters today, and I'm going to be traveling down to check out the facility, talk to some of their executives, and hopefully see if Alpitronic is going to be the company that I've been waiting for to supply us here with high-powered, highly reliable, and easily serviceable electric vehicle chargers. 400 kilowatt electric vehicle DC fast chargers. That's what I'm standing in front of here, a row of Alpitronic's new 400 kilowatt chargers. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina today at the headquarters of Alpitronic. It's a company that's new to the US as far as supplying high-powered electric vehicle charging equipment, but it's not a new company. They have thousands of units deployed in Europe, and they're known for being very reliable. We're hoping that we get reliable DC fast chargers here in the US, and that's why I came down here to talk to the company about their new charging equipment, to learn more about when we're going to see it and why they claim to have the most reliable DC fast charging equipment on the market. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm here today with Mike Doucliff. He's the CEO of Alpitronic US, and we're standing in front of his product portfolio here. We've got a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger, a 200 kilowatt, and this is the big boy here, the 400. So that's the one that I'm super excited about. I'm actually excited about all of them, Mike, because these have great form factor, and if they live up to what Alpitronic is talking about quality-wise, that will really be the big determining factor on whether or not this is good equipment or not. So I'm looking forward to it. You're new to the US. You're not new though. Alpitronic has how many thousand chargers in Europe?
Yeah, well, Alpitronic was actually founded, Tom, in 2009.
Okay.
We started off working on building components for electric vehicles, a lot of early work in power conversion. In fact, the four founders went to school together for power conversion specifically. Then we also got into some power cycling testing of semiconductors. So this background gave us the kind of knowledge to build up our charging business, which is what we started in 2016, and then launched in 18. So since 2018 now, worldwide, we've deployed 27,000 DCFC chargers, which means over 50,000 ports live, installed, being used every day.
And millions of charging sessions. I think they mentioned before, you're almost doing 1 million a week now.
Exactly, so we have a database. So we have a back-end connection to all of our chargers, and we record the data, oscilloscope level data for every charge session. Today the database is over 75 million charging sessions of data. Every day we collect another 160,000 charging sessions worth of data.
That's good. So let's talk a little bit about reliability, because there's a lot of companies coming out with DC fast charging equipment. I go to the shows, I can't even count them. Every booth has a DC fast charger. But a lot of them are new companies that don't have a track record. You guys have a track record in Europe. It seems like you have a very high uptime so far, that you make good quality equipment. What's the secret sauce to that? Because you know, it's one thing for us to have DC fast chargers all over the country, which, you know, they're starting to proliferate, but a high percentage of them seem to be broken. Outside of the Tesla Supercharger network, they seem to be doing pretty well, but Electrify America, EVgo, ChargePoint, some of the networks that we use, I go there and, you know, sometimes half the stations are down. What's Alpitronic doing that BTC Power, Signet, Delta, you know, the FSEC, what are you doing that these companies aren't doing?
Well, I don't know if I can comment specifically on what they do or don't do, we don't know. But I can tell you, for Alpitronic specifically, and it's not one thing, there's no silver bullet. I think it starts first of all from the power module and the power conversion. You know, a large portion of the value of a DCFC, the brain, is really in the power conversion. So I think one thing that's very important for us is that the power conversion, the power modules are designed by us. We own the design on the power modules. We have a partner build the PCBAs, the printed circuit board assemblies, but then we assemble them ourselves. So I think first is the design, and that goes back to our legacy, right? Our legacy knowledge around power conversion, working with the automotive, working in the EV industry by building components, working on power cycling of the semiconductors. So all of this knowledge we funneled into the power modules. And so I think that's the first point, is having a high quality power modules. Now, I know a lot of people in the market will source modules and they will just build the system around it. And so for us, it's very, you know, we want to know exactly what's happening in the module. And I think by building the module ourselves gives us much more integration, much more information, much more control over what happens inside the module. So I think that's the first one. I think the second one is around what I mentioned earlier. We have a back-end connection to every charging session. So we get that oscilloscope level data, and we know if there's a fault in the field, we can take that data back from our database and put it into the grid simulator in the lab, simulate what happens, and then use that for product improvement. Maybe we need a certain component to have a larger voltage range or something, but we can learn from that. Then I think the third one is really around the design of the unit itself. And it's really not only designed for manufacturing, but it's also designed for service. So when we have an issue in the field, we don't, you know, first thing we do is get on our remote back-end system and we diagnose what's the problem. 2 times out of 3 times, we can fix the problem remotely. That means without sending a technician to the field. For the other 1/3 of time, we analyze where is the problem. Okay, we may not go down to the component level, but at least to the subassembly level. So then when we dispatch a field technician to the field, when we do need to do that, it's someone who already is trained on that, because we know the subassembly that needs to be trained, and they go with that subassembly. So when they arrive, they'll actually just swap subassemblies. We're not, you know, coming with a soldering iron and trying to go to the board level, but we want to get the customer back up. So then we make the swap, and then 100% of the subassemblies would then come back to our service and repair center for analysis and product improvement and life cycle. So I think it's not just one thing, but it's really more a combination of others. I would give you a statistic, and this is based upon our European averages, that, you know, we need to go out and visit a charger physically for an issue, a problem, a break fix, once every 20 months, right? So that's once every 20 months, and if you say that each charger has, you know, 2 connectors, that means on average once every 40 months per connector. So all of that work in the background, you know, it pays off.
Well, I hope that translates to your installations here in the US. I like the form factor. The cable management systems seem to work very well. They extend out. And all of these power share also, right? The 50 kilowatt can split to 2 25s.
Correct.
The 200 you can split, and as with the 400. And it's not just 200 and 200.
Right.
It can dynamically balance the power, right? According to what, 50 kilowatt units?
That's right. Inside each of these, what we call the HYC 400, we have 4 power stacks. Each power stack has 100 kilowatts in it. And inside of the power stack, it has 2 50 kilowatt power units. So these power units are in granularity of 50 kilowatt. And that means that we can dispatch power between cables at this granularity of 50 kilowatts. So on the top of the charger, we have a switching matrix. We call it an output switchgear, which is basically a network of bus bars and relays. And then based upon the logic, or based upon what the car is asking, we'll then allocate in increments of 50 kilowatts the power to one cable or another.
Okay, when are we going to start seeing these here in the US in the ground?
Well, we have one public-facing HYC 400. That's in Portland, Oregon. That's at the Electric Island. I think you've been there before.
Yes.
But in terms of our customers, so deploying, we should have the first units in the ground mid-October. Now, we're not, driving those installation roadmaps and all of that, but mid-October is what we hear from our customers.
And that's the Mercedes network, right? Sorry to interrupt you. Didn't Mercedes announce that they were going to be using your product?
We do have a partnership with Mercedes, and we did announce that a few weeks ago. But so we have many customers. So I think the first unit planned across our customer portfolio is for mid-October.
Okay. All right. It sounds like it's not from Mercedes, or he would have said it was Mercedes. So that means we have another announcement coming at some point soon.
How about this? How about this? I will post something from our first live charging station on my LinkedIn.
Very good.
And everybody will know.
I'll be looking for it. Give me a heads up so I'm ready for it the day before.
Sounds good.
And listen, thank you very much for talking. Good luck with the new headquarters here. And by the way, the chargers are not manufactured here. This is just the headquarters.
Correct.
But they are made in the U.S., so they do qualify for the incentives through the Inflation Reduction Act, but they're manufactured in Wisconsin?
That's correct.
That's
correct.
Yeah, very good. Listen, thank you for your time.
All right, Tom.
And good luck with Alpitronic.
Yeah, great to see you.
State of Charge is powered by Qmerit. After I've helped you decide which electric vehicle charging equipment you're going to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and let the EV charging installation professionals at Qmerit install it. All right, so I'm here today with a familiar face. Believe it or not, it's the first time I've ever met Branden. This is Branden Flasch. He and I have been friends on social media for years now. Branden, if you don't know, he's got a very active X account. He also has his own YouTube channel where he talks about electric cars, charging, range tests, all that stuff. So I've known Branden for a long time, virtually. I finally got to meet him here. So Brendan's going to talk a little bit today about the new Alpitronic units and why we're excited about the possibility of these actually being more reliable than the DC fast chargers we have currently. If you drive an electric vehicle, you've had issues with going into DC fast chargers. I mean, you've done road trips, you've done videos, Kyle, me, where chargers are broken. So, this is a new company. There's a lot of new companies making DC fast charging equipment, but, it seems like Alpitronic is focusing on their, differentiating factor is that they're going to be super reliable.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Why is that? Why is this going to be more reliable than an ABB, a Signet, a BTC Power, the things that we've been using today?
Yeah, I think a point of clarification. So Alpitronic is new in North America, but we've actually been around since 2009 doing power electronics development for the automotive world. So working with the major OEMs that you all know and love that you may drive today, developing onboard traction inverters, DC to DC converters, airplane power supplies. So really at its core, Alpitronic is a power electronics engineering firm. We also make test equipment that is in the world's leading manufacturer of power electronics or silicon carbide chips, actually testing all the way down to the chip level and the silicon carbide die level. So that's really a differentiating factor for Alpitronic. And all of that experience in power electronics comes into the hypercharger line. So in Europe, we pioneered with the HYC 150, HYC 300, which are all across Europe. Over 25,000 units are deployed with extremely good reliability. In 2022, we announced our next generation product, which we're launching in North America and has already been launched in Europe, which is the HYC 200 and HYC 400, as well as the standalone HYC 50, a wall or pedestal mount smaller unit. Here we have the HYC 400, which you can see there. And at its core, about 80% of the unit is power electronics. You have some supporting electronics, so down here. On the flip side of these breakers is actually where the incoming AC power from the grid comes into the unit underground or potentially another means depending on the installation. It's attached to some bus bars, comes to these breakers. Each one of those breakers is going to what we call the power stack or the SiC stack, which you can see here. So SiC for silicon carbide. And each one of these is 100 kilowatts of power conversion, taking the grid AC 480 volt power supply and then converting it to DC that then is going out to the vehicle. Each one of these is 100 kilowatts, but it's actually subdivided into two 50 kilowatt power units, and that's the power share granularity that the hypercharger can output. And up here we have what we call the output switchgear. So each one of these power stacks is feeding 2 channels of DC output to the output switchgear. And then the output switchgear is what's actually switching how the power is flowing to the different ports. You can have between 1 and 4 cables, and you can charge multiple vehicles simultaneously, and it can share with 50 kilowatt granularity.
Okay, I heard them talking about serviceability, because no matter how reliable it is, things break.
Yes.
And these things get beat up. They're out in the public and cold and hot and constant use. So they talked a little bit about why these are faster to or easier to repair when they do go down. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So we really built the unit for both manufacturability and serviceability. They kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes developing for manufacturability comes at a sacrifice of serviceability, but we really try to balance the two, because at the end of the day, we have to build the units and we also have to service the units. So any negative impacts on either side impact us. And inevitably will impact customer experience or EV driver experience at the end of the day. So we've built it very modular. So down here, as I mentioned, the input switchgear, that's kind of one sub-assembly. Each one of these power stacks, we actually have a specialized cart so that one person can do a power stack replacement. You don't have to have 2 people, even though these weigh about 100 kilograms or about a little over 200 pounds. You can have one person do a replacement because the cart attaches, slides out onto that cart, strapped on, and then our vans actually have kind of a cassette, if you will, to slide those power stacks on, and then you can grab another one, pop it back in. I'd say a trained technician can do a power stack replacement in under an hour, maybe even half an hour, depending on their skill level. Okay, and it's designed so that these get replaced, not repaired on site. Like I remember I was at Electrify America site recently. The technician was there working before I was there. I had to wait to get one of the few chargers working for like 20 minutes. Then I charged for like 40 minutes and he was still working, and I went over and talked to him, and he's like, I'm gonna be here for at least another hour. He was on site 3-4 hours. So what you're saying at least is that that's not going to be the goal of Alpitronic, is that your goal is just going to be come in, pull the component out, whatever failed, put a new one in, and leave. Yeah, I'm not going to say that will never happen, because there are always some weird issues that might require some field diagnostics. But in general, we're able to kind of triage the issue remotely, figure out exactly what the component failed is, or at least have a couple ideas and send the appropriate parts. And then that way we can swap either the component itself, the sub-assembly, just depending on what exactly needs to be replaced. And we're doing that so that way it's a very quick or short downtime, replace the part, and then the unit's back up and operational. That way, if we need to spend time diagnosing why it failed or how it failed, we're able to do that in our lab, where we're not then impacting EV driver experience. And you also talked about the fact that Alpitronic is going to have a network of vans that repair these units. Now, they won't cover the whole country. There will be some cases, remote areas, where there's not a lot of units that you do subcontract, but the people that work on the units aren't just electricians where you sent them a manual. They have to come here. Actually, to this room, the Alpitronic Academy.
This is the Alpitronic Academy, and they have to go through a training course, and then they have to pass the course. It's not like you come in and you sit down for 2 hours and you leave and you didn't pay attention. You have to actually then perform and prove that you are capable of and as part of that week-long course for break fix for either our in-house technicians or partner technicians, they're actually having to do multiple repetitions of the common repairs, and then they're having to take a written test at the end, as well as a functional test, to make sure that they're not only doing the repair properly, but they're also doing it safely and to our quality standards. So unlike some programs that you might just pay, show up, sit in a seat for a day, and then you leave and you're certified, here we will fail you if you're not competent and qualified to work on the equipment. Have you passed the test yet? I have. See that? Listen, hopefully everything that you're doing here to ensure quality translates into these units being more reliable. We all know that's a big problem with DC fast chargers currently, and hopefully this next generation of chargers, the companies, Alpitronics and others, have learned from the first movers' mistakes and put out more reliable equipment, because it's one thing to have DC fast chargers all over the place. It's a totally other thing to be able to rely on them and know that they work. We're going to be monitoring these when they're out there in the field, and from what I understand, we'll be getting them soon. And me and my buddy Kyle Connor will certainly be the first ones to tell you that they're not working if they're not working. Hopefully that's not the case. Less. Branden, thanks a lot. It was really great to finally meet you in person. It's been fun communicating over the years on social media, but you know, it's always nice to meet you in person. And good luck here at Alpitronic.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Well, it was nice to see the Alpitronic's new headquarters and talk to some of their people about the equipment. But what I really want to do is use it in the field and see how well it works and to see if it's the highest quality standards that we are expecting from this company. Now, they talk a lot about reliability, but we really need to get them in the field and see how well they hold up to the cold weather, the hot weather, the constant use from EV drivers. All looks great here in the factory, but until we can practically use them, we don't really know if this is going to be that big step forward, that next generation of charging equipment that's more reliable than what we have today. From what I understand, we're going to have the opportunity to test them in the field pretty soon because they're going to be deploying the Alpitronic chargers. I think next month in October, we're going to have the opportunity to check them out and charge from them. So hopefully there'll be some near the East Coast, so it won't be too far of a trip for me, but I definitely plan on using them at the earliest time that I can to try them out in the field. Now, just from playing around with them here at the headquarters, just a few things that I noticed that I do like about them. Number one, the screens. They provide a lot of useful information. Like EVgo, you can have a screen where you could see the voltage and the amperage that's being delivered, the time that it's on the charger. But one of the things that I really liked here is that they actually give you a charging curve. It'll plot out the whole charging curve like what I put on my charts when I do my DC fast charge recordings. So you can actually see how the vehicle charged in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, and you could see the power delivery throughout the whole charging session. And I think that's important for people to better understand how their EV charges so they're not surprised when they plug in at a high state of charge and it's not accepting a lot of power. If they kind of look at that graph every now and then, they'll learn a little bit about how DC fast charging works, and it's not perfectly linear like AC charging. I also liked the connector holster, believe it or not. That's one of my pet peeves on some of the charging equipment out there currently. The connector holsters don't seem to be designed very well. Some of them make it very easy for the connector to slide out. They don't latch in good, and then they drop on the ground and they break and it cracks. Some of the holsters also just break themselves. The Alpitronic holsters are integrated into the machine. There's no like appendage or no extra part that's the holster. It's just kind of like formed into that, and it really feels strong, and the connector locks in really well. I pulled out, jerked on it back and forth, and it's nice, good, tight connection. So I think that's a good design. I also like their cable management systems, and they have a few different types of cable management system. They seem to hold the cables really well. They make the cables sort of light for you to take and pull if you have to reach far to get to your charge port. So that was pretty good. They didn't do anything in the way of preventing vandalism though on the cables, which I look for some of the new equipment to perhaps have some sort of a theft-proof system or metal casing so that people can't cut them off. We're starting to see people cut off the cables, and they're extremely expensive, and sometimes it takes a while for the charge point operator then to swap them out. So I haven't really seen any of that with the Alpitronics, but the cable management systems work really well. At least they seem to work really well now. Let them get out in the field and let people beat them up for a while and yank on them and stretch them. Let's see how they hold up. You know, I was at a EVgo station yesterday, and the cable had snapped recently because I was there a couple days ago and it was fine, but now the cable and the connector was laying on the ground because the cable management system, which was just like a cord, and not a thick one at that, broke. These seem to have very robust cable management, so hopefully they're going to hold up a little bit better to the abuse that they get in the public, and unfortunately people do abuse these things. All right, well, that's all we really have for the visit today to down to Charlotte to check out the new headquarters for Alpitronic. I'm going to keep on top of this company. I think we're going to have a couple of announcements soon with the company, and I think we're going to start to see these chargers proliferate around the country, and hopefully they live up to the top quality that Alpitronic promises. That's the big thing for me, honestly. I'll forego all the ergonomics and everything if we just get charging equipment that is robust and doesn't seem to break all the time like some of the stuff we have out there now. All All right, listen, if this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.